Punk Revolution now. Today we're reviewing Chatpile's debut album. Very hyped, very excited for this record. Back in 2019, Chatpile released 2 EPs, both fantastic. I listened to both of them when they came out. The first one was This Dungeon Earth, and the second one was Rip Your Skin Please. This is music that was noise rock, really chaotic, kind of like industrial metal influence, kind of Godflesh heavy pounding, insane, not very commercial music that happened to get a lot of hype and a lot of appreciation on the internet just because the music was that good. Like, people would share it in Discord and stuff, like, oh, you gotta check out Chatpile. They're phenomenal, and that's how you know music is good, is when there's no, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but my perspective is it's literally that good that it can just pick up steam on its own. And then they followed that up with a split with Portrayal of Guilt, which is for sure one of the very best screamo bands around today. So, pretty amazing track record. Of course, there's a lot of hype going into this album. Seems like there's a lot of really hyped up noise rock records coming out right now. We had that Black Midi record, Hellfire, we had the Stabscotch record, and now we got Chatpile. So, one epic hyped up noise rock record in a row after another. And, well, I'm excited for this. Chatpile on the Flenser record label now, so they've got the industry behind them now. Which is cool with me because the Flenser is one of the only cool labels I really like. Let's just get into the music. Their debut album, God's Country. Let's start by taking a look at the album cover. This album cover is very simple. So simple, it's kind of scary, actually. You got this building here, this very plain brick building that's kind of like really boring and depressing looking, just completely covered by a bunch of wires and steel and just a bunch of capitalist mechanical thingamajigs that keep our society rolling at the cost of what? Our sanity? The Industrial Revolution was a mistake! And you see a little porta potty there too, which is kind of a gross, kind of depressing little thing there. So it's very simple. The tan color is very simple. Everything looks very simple. And then you got that freaky, creepy Chatpile logo. So when you really look at this cover and just kind of like look at it and let it sink in, it's kind of horrifying and depressing in that kind of funny little way. And that definitely matches their previous 2 EPs. This is not like deathcore or anything like that, even though it is pretty heavy and even though it is pretty miserable and pretty abrasive sometimes with the sheer harsh emotion coming out of the vocalist. Fundamentally, it's noise rock. I mean, you are going to get really heavy, fat feedback and industrial metal kind of tones in the production. It's like super deep and chuggy, but it's all very groovy, and I don't know, it always feels very like fundamentally falling back into like the noise rock category. If I had to describe this band in one very simple sentence to someone, I would say it's kind of like if Godflesh and the Jesus Lizard had a baby. Godflesh, the incredible industrial metal band. You got that very industrial percussion and industrial metal tones kind of coming in through Chatpile's music, and then you got the Jesus Lizard. I feel some of these guitar riffs are kind of Jesus Lizardy, and a lot of the vocals are very Jesus Lizardy, not so dependent on melodies and tones, and it's very much a theatrical vocal performance, really about just the vocalist just losing his mind on top of this music that's just so dark and thick and heavy and creepy. This is not music you're gonna like turn to if you want a really catchy melody, although there's definitely some extremely catchy, groovy bass lines and riffs in here. I feel like what's ultimately being communicated here is the vocalist is just so sick of living in a society that stinks ass that he's actually losing his mind and he can't even freaking function properly anymore. I think, if you look at the title of the album, God's Country, I think that's obviously a what a freaking hypocrite America is, that we claim to be a religious country who cares about God, and God is supposed to be a moral and loving being, but then we can't even properly house people, and we live in a society with a brick building and wires. And it makes you go crazy. And that's a very good message that I definitely feel is it's a good message to put into your noise rock. There's a couple things that stand out to me about God's Country that definitely set it apart from their first 2 EPs. One, I feel like this newest album, the production is a little bit it's a little bit more professional. It still sounds like they're pretty much doing a very similar rough around the edges process that they clearly went through with their first EPs, but it seems like they were able to get, I don't know if they're just getting better at using an EQ or just getting better at twisting around with the knobs on their amps or something, but everything just sounds like it sounds like deeper and clearer. It sounds very good. It's very good. I think the production is in a lot of ways just objectively better than their first two EPs. I think some people who like the lo-fi kind of rough around the edges vibe because it's noise rock, maybe you'll disagree with me, but I frankly think this, when I put this album on, I'm just like, holy crap, these riffs are just like, it just gets inside your soul, and that's freaking fantastic. And the other thing I'm picking up from this album is I feel like there's some, because it's like darker and thicker in the production, and there is a little bit of like cleaner guitar tones that come in once in a while on this record, and just the dissonant, sad chords they're playing. I'm actually picking up a little bit of like gothic kind of vibes in this record. I mean, gothic. This is the first time I'm listening to this band. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like post-punky. I don't know how. But why am I picking up gothic vibes? I don't know. So Godflesh and Jesus Lizard had a little gothic baby that's losing its mind because industrial society is driving us crazy. That's the new Chat Pile record in a nutshell. There's a lot in this record that's really reminding me of all the strengths that I love so much from their first two EPs, except, like I said, with that kind of got like a little bit of that goth tinge to it and better production. Like the opening track, Slaughterhouse, I think that is just freaking fantastic. That is Chat Pile at their freaking best. The way that song just, you know, starts with that drums and just kind of builds up, and it's a very linear song that just really builds and develops. It's a little bit longer, on the longer side. I think that just is fantastic. Something about that linear song structure, to me, just, it feels like it really works with Chat Pile, because like I said, with the vocals, it's just like screaming, insanity, losing your mind, lyrics about hating yourself, lyrics about hating the world, and just lyrics about losing your mind. It's like freaking Joker is the vocalist of Chat Pile, okay? The linear song structure allows for that theatrical vocal performance, I feel like, to just kind of develop and grow and just tell a story a little bit better. Like Dallas Beltway, I think, is their very best song. It's freaking astounding. It definitely has that kind of linear songwriting, that growth, like you're listening to the vocalist, he's telling a story, rather than like verse, chorus. And then the last song too, Grimus Smoking Weed, which I think is probably their longest song. It kind of also, you know, I really like with Chat Pile taking this like longer song approach. It almost brings almost like post-rock vibes, very post-hardcore Slinty almost, like as if Slint and Godflesh and Jesus Lizard had a baby. They're having a lot of babies, it sounds like. That's pretty freaking fantastic. And these are genres that I freaking love, so I'm like really ecstatic about a lot of what I'm hearing in this record. I do feel like in God's Country, this is obviously their first full-length album. They are kind of experimenting with different structures and ideas and songwriting approaches. There's some songs here that I do feel like are a little bit more conventionally put together, and that doesn't always resonate with me as well. Like the song Pamela, yes, that song does have a development to it, but it really does kind of feel like I can kind of pick out, okay, here's the verse, and then here's the chorus, and then here's the verse, and then here's like kind of like the climax to the end. A little bit more of like a traditional kind of song structure. I'm not so crazy about what Chat Pile is doing in these songs, because I feel like, you know, I'm going to just stick with Pamela, but I do feel it appeals, kind of relates to a number of songs in this record. It has this kind of like really it's very like, that's kind of the gothic, clean, post-punky kind of guitar strums, where it's like just kind of strumming it and letting it kind of ring out. I mean, they're jazzy chords, which are kind of interesting, but I'm not really in love with that chord progression, and I'm not really in love with what the vocalist is doing on top of it. And then we get to the chorus, and I also kind of find that like kind of, it's an interesting riff, but I'm not like super in love with it. It's like, it's cool, and then the vocalist just kind of just like it just kind of just feels like very, I don't know, I feel like sometimes throughout this album, they're not really doing anything that's like extraordinarily mind-blowing in terms of like the riffs they're putting together or the songwriting decisions they're making, which is fine. Obviously, you don't need to like try to make every single song a mind-blowing song, but when you're having a song that's a little bit more traditionally structured, and the vocalist is kind of stuck in sort of this one sort of location of just kind of like sounding insane, either kind of rambling to himself or like screaming. For a full-length record, it does get a little bit tiring. It does feel a little bit like, I don't know, sometimes the lyrics feel a little bit too blunt to me. Like, for example, like the song Why. It's a song critiquing society for the fact that we have homelessness. And that's a great message. Of course, if you really think about the fact that there's homelessness in the world, it will drive anyone crazy. And that's definitely the kind of the thing that's happening in the lyrics. But I feel like you kind of pick that up in the lyrics really quickly, and they don't really explore that theme as interestingly as they could. And I just kind of feel that way a lot with the vocals. Like, it's like, okay, I kind of understand the point here. This guy's going Joker mode. That's cool. But for a full 40 minute length record, if some of the riffs I feel like are really, really amazing, and then some of the riffs I feel like are pretty decent, and then some of the song structures I feel like are pretty standard, and then sometimes the vocal performance feels like a little bit tiring to me. There's gonna be times in this record where I'm feeling like the first two EPs of Chat Pile I feel like were extremely extraordinary noise rock. Sometimes in this record I feel like I'm listening to extraordinary noise rock, and then other times where I feel like I'm listening to pretty standard run-of-the-mill noise rock with vocals that actually sometimes I kind of am a little bit tired of, and maybe even riffs I'm not really super in love with. I guess now that I think about it, it seems like Chat Pile probably really did benefit a lot from the EP structure, forcing them to really consolidate and be extremely consistent, and then also the shorter length reduces the chances of the vocals getting kind of tiring for a full-length record. I think Chat Pile are clearly an incredibly talented band. I just think in terms of figuring out how to really master the full-length record formula, the full-length record structure, I think they've got some progress to make. I think this is a record where you can pick some of the highlights out and put a fantastic EP together. For a full-length 40-minute record, are they capable of writing a record that's gonna have me sitting on the edge of my seat the entire freaking time? I know they are absolutely capable of that. They're clearly extremely, extremely talented. I just kind of feel like ultimately this record's a little bit inconsistent. I love the opening track, I love the ending track, and I love moments in between, but there's also a lot of moments where I feel like this is a little bit, I don't know, just I'm not thrilled all the time with it. I'm not always buying the message of the vocal delivery. I'm not always feeling like this person is always authentically, genuinely losing their mind. I'm still really happy with this record though, because it does contain some of Chat Pile's very best tracks, and it's a bit of a different approach from them in terms of the production and some of the songs that they've written here. So I'm pretty happy with it, but I'm gonna give this a 7.5 out of 10. It doesn't necessarily, to me, strike me as a noise rock masterpiece, as some people are saying it is, but I know they're capable of doing it, and I'm still really happy this is added to their discography, so I can't wait to see what they're doing next. They, I think, are going to have a very successful career as a fantastic noise rock band. So that kind of wraps up all my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you go check out this band. It's cool to support a indie band, a lo-fi, anti-capitalist noise rock band. Punk. They're punk. They're very punk. Thank you for watching, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe. Punk Revolution now.